I'm Sister Maureen Lamarche. I am in Kingston, Ontario. I left Kingston when I was 18 to enter the CND. I had been in the CND school in Kingston all my life, from grade 1 to grade 13. I also had an aunt in the CNDs. I entered in 1956, made vows in 1958, and I was missioned to high school, teach high school in Toronto, which surprised me because I was basically just out of high school. And then I was asked to teach grade 1 at St. John's Elementary School, which was an interesting change in my life, but it's one which I value very much, because teaching in high school, which I enjoyed and eventually went back there, but teaching in elementary school, especially grade 1, no kindergarten, you have to really teach. You can't say open your book and read. So those 2 years, I think I learned how to teach. It was like training to be a teacher, because you had to be ready for almost anything. And then one fine day at lunch, Sister Catherine of the Eucharist asked me which I wanted to do. Next year we need somebody for home ec, and we need somebody for secretarial. Well, I hate sewing. Don't care if I ever see a needle again. Anybody who's been through the novitiate knows why. And but I love to cook. And so, but I know nothing. I didn't know how to type. I knew nothing about teaching secretarial, but I chose secretarial, which was the biggest decision I could have made for my future, which I didn't know at that point. So I learned to type while teaching typing. I took summer courses in typing, data processing, that kind of thing. And then I went to Ottawa. And after final vows, I did go back to the high school, maybe 1 year. And then I went to finish my degree at Carleton University, St. Pat's College. And that was 1968. 1969, in December, I was called to the provincial's office and asked if I would be interested in going to Japan for 2 years. The sister who was doing the secretarial course in Japan, in Fukushima, was coming home, and they were just needed somebody until things settled, so if I would go for 2 years. So now you know why choosing secretarial was a very good choice in the end. There was a departure ceremony at St. Mary's Cathedral, my home base from childhood. So then I finished my degree, and in May I took off, May 15th, for Japan. I didn't attend my graduation ceremony, but I asked that my grade 1 teacher, Mother St. John of Siena, CND, that she replace me there, because I realized as I got older, not old, but older, she taught me how to read. And after a rather checkered academic record in elementary school and high school, I finally realized the real gift that I received was loving to read. The sisters saw me off from the mother house, and when we entered, we went through the main door into the mother house. I recall being told that the only other time you would go through those doors would be your funeral or to Japan. So I did go. I think I was the last person to go through those doors leaving for Japan. I had always wanted to go away, didn't matter where. I never got homesick. I'm not a homesick person. I sent a telegram from Victoria to let the sisters in Japan know that I was arriving. That telegram has never arrived, but I didn't know that at the time. We landed in Haneda Airport, which at that time was a very different place from what it is now. Then I said, "Where are the sisters?" Nobody was there. And that was the beginning of my introduction to the kindness of people in Japan. The taxi driver's taxi stand was there, still inside. I had no Japanese money. I didn't know enough to bring any or to get, I didn't know what to do. The taxi driver was kind enough to give me 10 yen, and I called the convent. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and a Japanese sister, Anazawa, answered the phone, and I said, "An English-speaking sister, please." And she understood enough English to know that. She called Margaret Palmer, Sister Margaret Palmer, who came to the phone, and when I heard English, I started to cry. And Sister Palmer said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm at Haneda. Nobody here to meet me." And so she said, "Okay." So we got organized, and I said, "Please talk to the taxi driver." And the taxi drivers kindly took me through the early morning hours of Tokyo with the sun coming up, and I arrived Pentecost Sunday morning at the convent. And of course it was only Sister Anazawa and Sister Palmer to greet me. So I was shown to my room, and Mass was, I think, at 6 o'clock or something like that. I don't remember, but it was early. So I went to Mass, and I don't know, the words of Pentecost Sunday still reverberate. The Spirit of the Lord fills the whole world. And every Pentecost Sunday, regardless of date, I always express gratitude for the Holy Spirit who got me there safely. I went to language school in Roppongi, famous area of Tokyo, and 2 years in language school. And from there, I went back to the college to teach, and then I realized that it would be very useful in the future to have an MA. So I asked permission to go and study at Sophia University, and that was in 1978. When I went back after language school, I was able to start teaching different courses in English, particularly literature. We were reading Alice in Wonderland, and the students, I was beginning to be comfortable with the students and they with me. My Japanese was still pretty rusty, but it was getting there. And I asked them, well, writing a report is a possibility, or dramatizing Alice in Wonderland. And there were about 120 students, I think. And everyone chose drama. And so I learned something about Japanese students. They love drama. And that put me on the road to a lot of drama productions. Once I came back from getting my MA, I was there again. So we produced a number of plays. The first was, Alice in Wonderland, and the girls did a wonderful, wonderful job. In that particular group, the present provincial of Japan, Sister Date, was one of the members of the Alice in Wonderland group. So we have a good memory together. Drama was taking up a lot of my life, and then in 1981, I think it was, Mother Teresa came on the scene, and the students, financially, the economy was improving in Japan, and homestay programs and trips abroad with students were becoming popular. So that was another whole chapter. I did come to the States on the homestay programs, but more importantly, I took students to India, And we had a sponsorship program set up, and not just ourselves, 2 other communities were involved, SSNDs and the DHMs in India. There was at least one more trip to India, and it was with graduates and students in my night class and a few of their friends. So this was an adult group. Some graduates were in it too. 1995. So that was the end, the final trip, and it was in December. We were there only a couple of weeks. We had Christmas and New Year's. And so my India story finished there. Then we still had the ongoing, the homestay program. And the homestay program went on into the 2000s. So now we're getting into 2004, if I have the year right. The CNDs were setting up a gathering in Cameroon of all the newer members up to a certain age. And Sister Shibata asked me to accompany, if I would accompany the sisters, Japanese sisters who were going. And I kind of smiled because my first attraction to religious life was to Africa. And I had to give that up. I didn't have to, but I did, because the CNDs managed to convince me otherwise. But I said to God, well, it took 40 years, but I'm going to Africa. And we were there 3 weeks. So that was a really wonderful experience. I appreciated that. You well know what happened on March 11th of 2010. We had the earthquake, 9, we had the tsunami, and we had the explosion of the nuclear plant. I was just getting my hair cut actually, and I was on the way home. I stopped at the rectory when everything started to move and it sounded like glass was falling. I called Father. He said, this is an earthquake. And so I went out, got outside, and the parking lot, the cars are parked side by side. And when I look back now, everything was moving. The cars were they weren't rolling or anything, but they were moving. And I remember going over and putting my hands as though I was going to stop the car from coming. It wasn't moving that much. It was just one of those crazy things that you do, you don't think. The sisters were very calm. They knew exactly what to do. And I realized our older sisters had been through the war. They were so ready to take over. That day immediately water, of course, was the big thing. But we were in our new convent that was actually built in 2001. And it was supposedly, and it was, earthquake proof, almost 100%, which was a blessing. Within a couple of days, elementary school parent who had a horticultural business came with a tank full of water, and the sisters had every possible container from the house. Neighborhood people came and also received water. When I got home, it was the day before graduation of the college, and all of the students, fortunately, were in rehearsal. So they were all together in one room, which meant we knew where they were, and they got sent outside. The transportation system was gone, and many of our students come from nearby cities. So the dietetic students who were trained in cooking for large numbers, they took over. The students stayed overnight. The parents who could come for their children came, but some of the children also had to stay overnight. As things began to settle a little bit, and there was some transportation happening, our graduates from all over Japan were sending food, fruit and different things. And Tabata, our sisters in Tabata, of course, were very worried about us. And so there was just an outpouring of generosity on all sides. Of course, schools were closed, graduation didn't happen. We only did it for that group about 2 years after. They came, those who could, to have their ceremony. the whole situation of the economy, of course, in our area, Fukushima area and Sendai and over on where the nuclear reactors are, all of that, all the people there, their lives were affected terribly. Radiation then became the next big problem. The embassies were in touch with their people, so our teachers from Australia and Britain, their embassies got them to Tokyo and on a plane home as soon as possible. I didn't intend to leave, and Madeline didn't either. But we were, Sister Terashima said, if you want to go home, we'll arrange it. And I said, no, we'll stay. Because the school would open. It opened again in May. They said all happened in March. So the schools opened in May, but we didn't have foreign teachers except ourselves. And so I taught in the junior high. I taught there till the summer, but the college also opened, and the English department needed teachers. And the students didn't really know us, but suddenly all their teachers, especially their foreign teachers whom they loved, disappeared, and 2 senior members arrived to teach them. So it was difficult for them and difficult for us. And had their families, many of their families had gone through trauma. The following year, all kinds of things started to happen. Because of the radiation, the city had to be washed. They washed the buildings, and then, as people have probably seen, they dug up about 5 centimeters of soil. They cut down all our trees, and we had a beautiful garden. And that was the crucial point for me. I just started to weep when they wrecked our garden. Our raspberry bushes, our blueberry bushes, our fig trees, and all gone, our little pathways. They took the stones of the pathway and said they'd bring them back. They had to clean them. But that was a whole new thing in that. So, and of course financially, people couldn't sell rice, they couldn't sell milk, nothing from that area. So families were really, really in trouble. And the school, as far as number of students went, the kindergarten and elementary school, any family that could leave Fukushima, if they had family in another part of Japan, they were gone. So that was the whole situation for the school changed in terms of getting students. And we had to make a decision, especially about the kindergarten building, which we couldn't use, and the older building also, the swimming pool. There were so many things. So will we continue or will we call it quits? And God bless the sisters. Let's keep it going. And of course with the support of the CND. And one thing that I really must put in this, Sister Jo Badali was the leader of the community at that time. She came to Japan in May, which was just 2 months after. And she spent a whole month with us in Fukushima. And I could cry just thinking about that, because I don't know if she realized how important that was for us. It wasn't a week, it was a month. And she just stayed with us in Fukushima. It took a year before you felt things kind of settling down. But when they started digging up our garden and wrecking our garden, I said to myself, no, this is it. I've got to get out of here. So I came home for 3 or 4 weeks that summer. 2014, 2015, a lot of things began to change at the church. I was doing mostly in the Center for Adult Education that we have. And so I was always teaching the Old Testament, and so I had a group there, a small group. And at the church, I had been doing meetings every Thursday, preparing the liturgy with a group, and we're just getting ready for the liturgy of the next Sunday. And So life was moving along. I was probably not as busy as I usually was, but then I came home for my break, 2018, and Marika was home by then, settled in the apartment over on Wright Crescent, and I visited her there, and she said, you should come home. She said, you know, you could live in an apartment in this building. She said we could arrange that. And so I hadn't really thought about coming home at all. And the Japanese sisters always want us to stay. But I said, well, maybe, because from when I was very young, I always wanted to be alone. That was kind of a dream, and I always lived in a community with 20 to 30 sisters, enjoyed it, loved it, but that desire to be alone, that's why I got very interested in Zen in Japan, because it really saved me. It gave me a prayer life, solitude, and made my retreats there, my 30-day retreat there. So that never died. And I said, well, maybe God is planning something for me again. So I went back to Japan, and I was doing my regular stuff, and Marika in October sent me a message. There's an apartment available. We have to decide in a week. So I said, okay, I guess this is it. And I was celebrating my 80th birthday and 60 years profession. January, February became very, very busy. Parties began, and there were a lot of them. But I appreciated very much. There were people who came in, one of the adult education groups especially. I hadn't seen some of them for many years, and they made it a point to come. Some people traveled from Kobe. All the different people, the graduates that were in the Fukushima area. So I knew that was going to be, so I tried to get as much done as possible. I left the 6:30 bus in the morning, and I guess there were about 100, 150 people there to see me off on that bus before they went to Mass for Ash Wednesday. That was 50 years. And I knew I was leaving something very, very precious behind. I only had to get to Toronto, and from Toronto I had a ticket. I flew to Kingston, and the sisters were waiting for me. It was a damp, rainy day in Kingston, and they were so kind to meet me here. So then I arrived to my beautiful new apartment. It wasn't lonely, but it was time alone, and it was like, where do I go from here, you know? At the cathedral, because I'm so involved with the ministry, that really is a lot of my time goes there, because I do the reading and the Eucharistic ministry, and there's always somebody who needs to be replaced, so they know I'm there. I'm there. And so other than that, in the apartment building, as most sisters will tell you, if you're living in an apartment building, you don't have to look for an apostolate. There's so many people who are living alone and just want somebody to listen to them or to talk. I'm just open to whatever falls out of the sky.